So, two things which come spontaneously is one of them is that Auroville is a formation, and though from seen from this angle, it is of course an adventure because human consciousness has to move from ignorance towards knowledge. But seen from the other angle, Auroville is a formation. The mother spoke about it that even as a child, she had this formation of this Auroville. And then she left it there. And then later on, the architect, Roger, he picked it up. And that's how. So it is something which is pressing upon mankind to realize itself. And once that's what she meant by saying it's a dream of the divine, meaning thereby it has not entered into that realizing phase. I mean, dream of the divine when it was just being built, but it's a formation. So whether we like it or not, there is already an Auroville which exists in this subtle world, and it is this Auroville which will realize itself whether we like it or not. Now what we have to do is to align ourselves more and more to this divine formation rather than to our own individual wills. So when we read this very interesting word, again this sentence in the charter, or this necessity of being a willing servitor of the divine, because it's only when we become a willing servitor of the divine. Now the word willing is very interesting because everybody is an instrument of the divine, the whole universe is an instrument of the divine. But being a willing servitor of the divine is to tune our will to the divine will. It's not about my ideas, my opinions, my viewpoint. There'll be plenty, each one has their own. That's a different kind of world order. But what is it that the divine wants of us, not as a kind of fixed format? So she gave a formation, and why she did not spell out everything is so that human will can tune itself to the divine will. So I found this part which is important to understand. So people have to engage in yoga. To be a willing servitor means to practice equanimity. It means to do nishkam karma. It means that inwardly I live in a state of remembrance of the divine, and it's not my idea but to manifest the divine idea upon earth. Just as an aside, there was once a discussion going on about celebration of India's 50th independence, way back, 25 years back. And a very erudite scholar, learned person, he said toward the end of all the discussion, he said, we want to realize the India of our dreams. And I couldn't help but correct him. And I said, correct him in the sense that, sir, we want to realize the India of Sri Aurobindo's dreams. However high my dreams may be, they are still human dreams. So I can align my dreams to the divine dreams. So this where the trick lies, that I dream what the divine dreams. So that would be wonderful. But it's not about me and you or X or Y, but the divine dream, not in a kind of despotic way, though the divine, as the mother said at one point, is a benevolent dictator. So this is one part of it. Second part, which I find very interesting, is about the whole idea of democracy with which human beings have toyed in the rational cycle. So the mother describes a very interesting vision where she sees Sri Aurobindo playing with the ball, and the ball has become very worn out and old. And then Sri Aurobindo smiles like a child, tells her, "This has grown old. Can you get me a new one?" And the mother says, smiles and says, "This ball is democracy." And if read through all this charter, she has further and further explained, because when she said all of Auroville belongs to nobody in particular, but to humanity in general. So people had this idea initially that human beings can come and do anything which they like because it belongs to humanity. But then she had to introduce this, you have to be a willing servitor. Humanity itself belongs to the divine. The earth belongs to the divine. So this second aspect was she gave this idea of the true hierarchy. It doesn't yet exist, but it is going to come into being. She said, as the new consciousness grows, a true hierarchy will come. And it is not an arbitrary structure. It's not a man-made structure. It is not based on anything which is outward, but the true inner hierarchy. And who are the people who are ready for true governance, who are completely inwardly like a sannyasi? They are not attached to anything, not even to ideas and opinions, but to something much vaster. They are open to that vaster, luminous inner plastic guidance. That is the second part. And the third thing which I felt very interesting when I think I don't mind being very clear on certain things. When all this thing was going on about Auroville city plan and all this, so obviously you can't remain completely outside the whole thing. So I just have been asking this, that is this kind of like dynamic rays part of the original plan? Leave aside everything else. But very simply, it is a yantra. It is, like a symbol. And this symbol is like the rays of the divine dynamically going around its. If, if I have to use a mystic symbol, it's Sudarshan Chakra. And if I have to use a material symbol, it's galaxy. Now, these formations, I spoke about the formations and this kind of a whirling spiral. This is a divine action. Symbols cannot be distorted. Like when Hitler had distorted the symbol just a little, it would have been a human being. Even now people say that it's nothing but a swastik. Many people thought that he is doing nothing, he's making a swastik. He was not making a swastik, but by little bit tweaking it, it became the sign of an adverse force. So when as human beings, I would say only one thing: we are playing with immense forces in this creation, which have started pushing human beings, because now Auroville means that there will be end of the possibility of war. And I see this conflict in, Auroville, Ashram, the larger groups in mankind, as the forces which are trying to once again bring back the old reign. See, that's how, world comes on the brink of war. And what is the way to really avoid it is to help in the building of Auroville. How to help in the building of Auroville? It's not those man-made structures. It's not by the human mind and its limited intelligence. But there is a by and large a basic plan which is given, thankfully, to us by the divine. And then from there, we have to tune our consciousness, renounce our own little, selfish interest, our little viewpoints, opinions, and then we have to participate in this great adventure as a collectivity. When people differ, there are two ways to arrive at a unifying point. One is to reach such a apex of consciousness where we can find a synthesis. And the second is by tuning ourselves to the original, to the center. That center is the divine. The city that needs. It's not about me, that person, this group, that group. It is the need of the city. It's about humanity. It's about divine manifestation in humanity. So these are some of the things which come to me spontaneously from the Auroville Charter, that this plan of Auroville is a yantra. It's a formation. It's a like mother symbol, and one cannot really play with the symbol, because it means one is pushed by the forces of a certain kind. And I must say that while we as human beings may not understand their impact as of now, but even unwittingly to become an instrument of something which is distorting something which is divine is very dangerous. I can only quote this instance that while Subhash Chandra Bose, the great Indian leader, nationalist leader, he was shaking arms with Japan and Germany. People were so happy. Look here is come the Redeemer, who is going to save India from the British. What did Sri Aurobindo and the mother had to say about it? He said he is bringing in the adverse forces right into the heart of India. If Nazi Germany from one side and Japan from the other side had to invade India at that point of time, it would be finishing our work or pushing it back by 10,000 years. So we must be very, very, very careful which side are we really, standing, and which side means that basically on the side of not right or wrong, but on the side of the divine, being a willing servitor to execute the divine plan, to fulfill the divine will in man. In this alone lies divine's, human wisdom, ultimate human wisdom, and in this alone lies safety and the smooth journey in this great adventure. But if we take the other course, wherein we are just worried about our own little things, our ideas, viewpoints, opinions, and not what the divine has planned and willed for man, then we are basically meddling with immense forces and creation. That's all I can say. And we should be very, very careful, individuals as well as groups. Men, countries, continents, the choice is imperative. Truth or the abyss. So one should live by that truth. That truth she has revealed very clearly. I had no ambiguity when you read what she has spoken about Auroville. The question is whether we are ready to live it or not. That each one has to answer within oneself.